The organizational structures that dominated the 20th century corporate landscape were engineered for a very specific purpose: industrial repetition. The monolithic pyramid effectively optimized the rigid specialization of labor required to manufacture identical products with unwavering consistency. That static top-down hierarchy collapses in a modern knowledge economy. Value generation now requires managing kaleidoscopic change processes, where rapid adaptation and continuous innovation dictate survival. When traditional enterprises attempt to adapt, they frequently misdiagnose agility as a cultural mindset. They deploy motivational meetings, adopt new buzzwords, expecting structural transformation from sheer enthusiasm. True agility is a highly specific, mathematical, and structural engineering problem. It requires completely dismantling legacy reporting lines. The replacement for the pyramid is a decentralized architecture known as the team of teams framework. Instead of a rigid chain of command, it operates as a constellation of collaborative, autonomous units. This operational structure gained prominence following General Stanley McChrystal's efforts to restructure military operations. He realized that combating highly adaptable, networked threats required a networked organization of equal elasticity. You can observe the mechanics of the structure in a competitive cycling peloton. Rather than relying on a strict hierarchy of subordinate groups, the cycling peloton continuously adjusts its shape. As wind resistance and competitive pressure shift, leadership changes dynamically to maintain collective aerodynamic velocity. Replicating that velocity inside a corporation mandates the complete elimination of functional departments. The objective is to redesign how human capital physically flows through the enterprise. This diagram illustrates Conway's law: systems mirror internal communication structures. If a company isolates engineers, the product reflects those boundaries, delaying delivery. To eliminate this friction, progressive organizations merge specialists from vertical departments directly around distinct business domains. This creates a cross-functional talent pod. Unlike a traditional matrix team, the pod assumes total collective ownership of an entire initiative, from its initial inception down to its final deployment. The size and scope of these pods are strictly limited by a psychological constraint: cognitive load. This is the total amount of mental effort being used in the working memory of the team members. Overloading a team with excessive contextual complexity yields a mathematical reality. Much like a computer's central processing unit throttling under competing tasks, the team's strategic decision-making and operational velocity actively degrade. This chart maps the team topology's blueprint, categorizing pods to protect cognitive bandwidth. The primary engine is the stream-aligned team, responsible for continuous value delivery. To support them, a platform team provides the thinnest viable platform, internal services that reduce cognitive load without becoming a restrictive bottleneck. Modern organizational charts cannot be designed simply to manage financial budgets and reporting lines. They must be engineered to optimize the physical delivery of software and value. This graph tracks performance across Tuckman's 4 stages. Psychological science dictates stable teams achieve highest performance by developing a distributed team mind, shared models driving effectiveness. Frequent reteaming fractures this cognition, forcing regression to earlier stages and dropping performance back to baseline. This presents a severe tension. If stability breeds optimal performance, how do highly fluid, modular organizations avoid constant cognitive collapse? This visualizes Split Software's FAST model, resolving the paradox with a dual architecture. The static home base, bottom layer, handles long-term career growth. Daily execution occurs in the top layer through dynamic missions, temporarily pulling talent to execute high-priority problems before immediately dissolving. Following the implementation of this dual architecture, Split Software's release velocity effectively doubled, and their average customer activation time collapsed from 118 days to just 4 days. By deliberately engineering virtual stability through these dual structures, enterprises successfully insulate their human workforce from psychological burnout while maintaining total strategic elasticity. Operating this architecture introduces a massive macro-coordination challenge. You are continuously forming, scaling, and disbanding cross-functional pods across thousands of distinct employees. Traditional HR business partners relying on static managerial spreadsheets cannot process this volume of movement. The manual approach is mathematically too slow, inherently unscalable, and highly vulnerable to human bias. The infrastructural solution is the widespread adoption of AI-driven internal talent marketplaces. These platforms function as internal gig economies. They dynamically route supply, meaning employee skills and available hours, directly to demand, which are the open projects and pods, entirely bypassing the need for traditional managers to own the talent. This AI-driven talent marketplace maps supply to demand. The platform dismantles opaque silos, using AI to match employees cross-functionally, based entirely on verified skills rather than past titles. The immediate results at Schneider Electric: unlocking 200,000 hours of latent capacity and generating $15 million in savings. Beyond raw financial efficiency, a marketplace model systematically dismantles systemic pedigree bias. By relying on skill verification, it enforces a strict operational meritocracy. You cannot shift a workforce into fluid pods without dismantling legacy performance management. Accountability must be entirely redesigned. The standard hierarchy creates an indirect management paradox. When an employee spends 3 months deployed to a fluid team, their legal HR manager back at the home base has zero direct visibility into their actual daily output. Relying on traditional annual performance reviews in this environment creates severe informational asymmetry. Line managers evaluate work they never witnessed, which heavily demotivates knowledge workers and actively drives voluntary turnover. True accountability in a pod architecture requires continuous, real-time, 360-degree feedback. Data is pulled from the employee's entire operational network, pod leads, cross-functional peers, and external stakeholders, providing a comprehensive view of their collaborative efficacy. Similarly, goal-setting mechanisms must pivot. Top-down key performance indicators, metrics traditionally used to evaluate success, often reduce intelligent teams to feature factories, optimizing blindly for raw output rather than actual business value. The superior steering mechanism for fluid teams is the OKR framework, Objectives and Key Results, a system that measures actual outcomes, pioneered by Andy Grove at Intel. In a fluid environment, the deployment of OKRs follows a strict rule. Executive leadership defines the highly ambitious objective, but the pod is granted total, uncompromising autonomy over how to mathematically achieve those key results. When fluid teams are anchored by outcome-driven OKRs rather than executive micromanagement, the enterprise reaches a specific architectural state, achieving extreme strategic alignment alongside total operational autonomy. This diagram illustrates the complete architectural system. Stability is maintained at the home base, human capital is dynamically routed by the talent marketplace, and execution is owned entirely by cross-functional pods, measured strictly by OKRs. This modular framework is effective inside traditional firms, but it is currently being unbundled, pushing past the legal boundaries of the corporate entity entirely. The purest manifestation of this fluidity exists in Web3 through decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs. These are global networks of independent contributors governed by immutable smart contracts rather than human executives. Entities like Yearn Finance operate exclusively through multi-DAO working groups known as Y teams. They execute common protocol goals without centralized management, using tokenomics to compensate individuals based on technical contribution. To prevent cognitive overload in these asynchronous, globally distributed networks, DAOs rely heavily on shared technical infrastructures, such as virtual testnets, which provide a singular, transparent state of truth for all software engineers involved. The organizational pyramid was a tool built to manage predictability, but in the modern, hyper-connected economy, exponential value is generated almost exclusively through rapid adaptation, structural elasticity, and continuous innovation. Enterprise leadership is no longer about dictating tasks down a rigid chain of command. It is the active, deliberate engineering of a fluid ecosystem, a structural environment where specialized, cross-functional talent can seamlessly coalesce, execute brilliant solutions, and continuously adapt entirely without friction.